This week, the Miami Dolphins will travel to frigid Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania here for Monday Night Football in Week 15. And today on Steelers Talk, we've got our preview here for this Week 15 Monday Night Football matchup in a game that the Steelers could potentially really, put distance between them and the Baltimore Ravens here in Week 15, which is 3 games left to go. Now, before we get into the rest of today's show and before we get into this week's preview, help us win our sub battle this week. We are doing a new subscriber battle with our Dolphins channel here at Chat Sports, Dolphins Today, which currently sits at 37 new subscribers for the week. We have gotten a good 33 new subscribers. That's a good number, but we're just 4 behind Dolphins Today. And like I usually like to do with these other hosts that we got here at Chat Sports, I'm betting my usual, a steak dinner with our Dolphins host here, Nick Roloff, and the winner of this sub battle is going to owe the other host a steak dinner. You guys have really pulled through for me this year. I haven't owed a single steak to a single host all season long. I don't want to start now. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you are a new viewer, because the real ones that have already clicked that subscribe button can't help us out here, guys. We got to get some new blood in here. We got to get those new subscribers. Again, we're just 4 behind Dolphins Today. So if you've been watching our channel for a while, if you like our content, you want to help us beat the Dolphins this week, and you want to get me a free steak dinner from our Dolphins host, Nick Roloff, click that subscribe button. And now let's get into the preview, man, because very interesting, very fun matchup here, because the Miami Dolphins have won 4 straight games. All right, they were sitting at 2-7. Now they're at 6-7 with a chance to 6-7. Ponzi, exactly. They got a chance to get back to 500. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, are coming off a big win in Baltimore last week, trying to get up to 8-6. And if you can get to 8-6 here and get this win, you're really sitting pretty in terms of your chances of securing your spot in the NFL playoffs this year as the AFC North Division champion. In this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be wearing their Color Rush uniforms, and man, those things look good, man. I remember last year when we wore these things against the New York Football Giants, and that was a great day. It was a night game in Pittsburgh. Those same vibes are going to be there on a really cold night in Pittsburgh on Monday night. So really looking forward to those Color Rush uniforms on Monday. And something else to keep an eye on here is that Mike Tomlin, you can say whatever you want about Mike, but when you give him extra time to prepare, the Steelers usually win the football game. Not only does he have an excellent record coming off of a bye, but he is also top 3 all-time in NFL history in win percentage on Monday Night Football with a 21-3 record on Monday night. So, a lot of things pointing in the right direction there. But the Steelers are 0-4 in night games this season, okay? They have not won a game at night this year. And, that has been something, I don't think that really matters all that much necessarily. I don't think it's like a mental thing or anything. Just something to keep tabs on here, that the Steelers have not been a particularly good primetime team so far this year. But now you shift your focus to the Miami Dolphins, and they are winners of their last 4 games. But that 4-game stretch was a little bit of a cupcake kind of stretch for their season. The lone playoff team that they won during that stretch was a division rival in the Buffalo Bills. But before that, they only had 2 wins against the Jets. They swept the Jets. Congratulations, Miami. And then you get the Falcons in Week 8 on the road, where they kind of spanked that ass. But, a 4-win win streak and, a full month of winning football is 4 straight wins. And that's not easy to do in the National Football League. But that's exactly what Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins have done. And now they're feeling really good about themselves, and they even think that their chances to make the playoffs are still alive. If the Steelers can beat them in this game, their playoff chances are all but dead. And then also another thing to keep in mind about this game is that it's expected to be really cold in Pittsburgh on Monday, and Miami has a reputation as a soft team when playing in cold weather. I mean, whenever they have to play, when they've had to go to Lambeau and play in really cold conditions, Arrowhead in the playoffs, they have completely crumbled in those football games. I mean, just look at Mike McDaniel, and all bundled up with the multiple layers and all that stuff. It's going to be cold out there, but, this is a team that certainly has a reputation as a team that does not play its best football in cold weather. And I definitely think that, the weather conditions in Pittsburgh on Monday are going to favor the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no question about that. It's going to be windy. It's going to be in the teens, and that's pre-wind chill. So who knows how low it's going to get when the wind kicks in there. So certainly expect it to be a cold, winter evening there in Pittsburgh on Monday night, and that should give the Steelers a potential edge in this football game. But now we talk about the Miami Dolphins as a football team here, and we talk about their coaching and scheme breakdown. Mike McDaniel obviously is their head coach. He is on the hot seat right now, and our Dolphins host Nick Roloff says that this is the most important game of his coaching career because if the Dolphins lose, he might be fired at the end of the season. But he runs a new school Shanahan offense, one of the best and brightest offensive play callers in the league, in my opinion, still. And then Anthony Weaver is one of the up-and-coming defensive minds in the National Football League as well. He runs a Mike McDonald big nickel system that he's taking over from the Baltimore Ravens when he was working under then defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, current head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Now you take a look here at Miami's offensive ranks and where they kind of stack up with the rest of the league. And, the thing that really jumps out at you there is the EPA per rush. Their run game has been the number one run game in the league over the last month. It's been a big reason why they've won those 4 straight games. They're currently ranking 3rd overall for the season in EPA per rush. Now, they do turn the ball over, more than they probably would like, 18 turnovers on the year, and, they don't score a ton of points. The Steelers actually score more points per game than the Dolphins do, so it's not like an offense that you're super scared of, but that run game is definitely something to keep note of, especially with the struggles that the Steelers have had stopping the run as of late. But you take a look at their roster on offense. Tua Tagovailoa is their starting quarterback, and their offensive line has started to gel a bit more here over the last month. Patrick Paul, second-year player that's really coming to his own at left tackle this year. Jonas Savanaia has been one of the worst left guards in football this year, especially in pass protection. Cam Hayward has to take advantage of that matchup this week. Aaron Brewer has been one of the best centers in the league. He might be an all-pro this year. He's been that good for Miami. Cole Strange is their starting right guard with Austin Jackson at right tackle. At the weapons positions, they do rotate a lot of players in and out, but the main guys that you see are Jalen Waddle and Malik Washington at wide receiver. A lot of speed at that wide receiver position, even with Tyreek Hill out for the year. Then Devon Achane brings even more speed. I mean, I compare his skill set to a lesser version of Jahmyr Gibbs, where he really is explosive, man. Like, he's got it all. He's a true star back in this league, and he has proven that over the last month. And Darren Waller is their main tight end right now with Alec Ingold as a fullback. They like to play a lot of 22 personnel, which means with an extra running back, and they like to use Ingold as a true fullback in this system. But then on defense, you take a look at their defensive side of the ball, and it's not like their defense has been great this season either. I think that they've been pretty good at taking the football away, and they've been really good in the red zone. They're a top 5 red zone defense in the league, but they give up a lot of yardage. They give, they're not very efficient as a defense in general. They don't really have a specialty in terms of stopping the run versus the pass, all those different things. So the Steelers offense should have opportunities to have success against this Miami Dolphins defense, even though as of late this unit has been playing a lot better under Anthony Weaver. You take a look at the defensive roster that the Steelers will have to deal with on Monday. Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson are their defensive ends. They've been playing pretty good football as of late. And then Zach Seiler and Kenneth Grant will be the interior defensive linemen. But they have a very healthy rotation inside. They got Benito Jones. They've got Jordan Phillips, who's another rookie who has played really well for them this year. So they got a good, healthy rotation along the defensive line that you'll see on Monday night. Then the off-ball linebacker position, the guys that you'll see are Terrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks. Both these guys, pretty decent players. Definitely no complaints there in terms of, clear liabilities. Both these guys know what they're doing. They're veteran players, and they're very solid. And then in the secondary, Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones have certainly stabilized that cornerback position. It was a big problem for them early in the season. Those two have played better as of late, though. Our old friend Minkah Fitzpatrick will be playing nickel for this Dolphins defense. He's been playing very well in that role for them this year, and he kind of plays that Kyle Hamilton kind of all over the place chess piece kind of role for Miami, and he's played very well there this season. And then their safety duo isn't anything special. Ashton Davis and Melifonwu are not the best players in the world, but they're not true liabilities either. So still to come here on the Steelers Talk Preview here in Week 15, keys to victory versus the Miami Dolphins. 8 things that the Steelers need to do this week to take down the Dolphins and improve to 8-6. Then I got my scouting report on Tua Tagovailoa, what the Steelers defense needs to do to force some mistakes out of Tua on Monday night. And then I'll get into my score prediction here for Week 15. Do the Steelers win this game? I'll let you guys know my prediction at the end, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into the rest of this week's preview, I want to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks, and it is the holiday season right now, guys. And in my opinion, this is the best time of the year for watching sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes in both collegiate and professional football, and it's all happening at once. And while all that action is going on, there's one place where it feels good to be right, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is that how you play is up to you. If you want a little bit more flexibility, you can choose the flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you're feeling particularly strong about a certain lineup and you want a bigger payout for getting it right, I go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test and make some money. That is, if you know ball. So for Monday night's game here, I'm going to take the more on Devon Achane rush yards. I'm going to take the more on rushing yards for Jaylen Warren as well. And I'll take the less on passing yards for Tua Tagovailoa. So you guys can download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. First key to victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and really the biggest one in my opinion, is stop the Dolphins' run game, all right? The last 2 weeks, the Steelers obviously have not been able to stop the run. And now you're going up against the hottest rushing offense in the National Football League this week. And you got to bounce back, plain and simply. If you don't and you allow this offense to run all over you the way that you've allowed Baltimore and Buffalo's run games to run all over you, it could be a long day at the office. And, we could be seeing some Fire Mike Tomlin chants back in Acrisure Stadium in the fourth quarter of this ball game. So I think the 2 big injuries to watch this week in this regard are Devon Achane, the running back for the Miami Dolphins, and Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Devon had to leave the game against the Jets last week with a rib injury. Now, according to head coach Mike McDaniel, he could have came back in the game, and they were just kind of sitting him for the rest of the game in abundance of caution. But certainly sounds like Achane is going to be able to play with this injury on Monday. Now, how much punishment is he going to be able to take? I guarantee you that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defensive coaching staff is going to be, putting an emphasis on hitting this guy, in the midsection a little bit and making him uncomfortable. But, listen, man, Achane is an extremely dynamic back. He's one of the fastest guys in the entire National Football League. And the Steelers got to be careful here, because you take a look at what Miami's done the last 4 weeks. Now, it's not like most of these teams are particularly dynamic in any stretch. Buffalo has struggled to stop the run this year. The Commanders' defense might be the worst in the league right now. New Orleans' defense is far from special. And then the Jets, they got rid of Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. That defense stinks. So, it's been impressive what they've been able to do. At least 164 yards in 4 straight games is nothing to sneeze at. But at the end of the day here, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers need to do a better job than what they've been doing the last 2 weeks in particular. You went from 99 yards given up against the Bears, a really good running team, by the way. All right, the Bears can really run the ball. You had Derek Harmon on the field for that Week 12 game. To now, you're giving up, over 217 yards at least per game over the last 2, and the Steelers got to get that under control and fast, okay? Because if you don't, like I said, I think that Miami is going to have a really good chance of winning this ball game. And you guys can see the difference for the Steelers' rushing defense when they have Derek Harmon versus when they don't have him this year. And it's not like it's a super tiny sample size without Harmon. You've got like a month of football games, 4 games without Derek Harmon, the first 2 games of the year, and then these last 2 games, and you're giving up almost 6 yards a carry. You're giving up almost 200 yards per game. You've given up over 200 the last 2 games, and then, you inject Derek Harmon. If he's able to play this week, if you listen to the numbers in the 9 games that he has played this year, the Steelers would be giving up less than 100 yards in this ball game. If that happens, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers come away victorious. And, a big way that you got to do that is you got to match the size that the Miami Dolphins are going to present to you, because, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers really led the charge in the NFL this year in terms of jumbo personnel packages, which means 6 offensive linemen on the field at one time. But, maybe the team that has taken that idea and ran with it and has had the most success with it this year has been the Miami Dolphins. Over the last several weeks, I think starting with the Buffalo Bills game, they have been the most heavy jumbo personnel team in the entire league from that point forward. And they haven't lost a game since they started going to that jumbo personnel look. So the Steelers are going to have to match that size, and they're going to have to do a good job blocking up front, getting some push, holding that line of scrimmage. The linebackers need to be in the right place, and then they've got to tackle. So expect to see the Pittsburgh Steelers in a lot of base personnel. Expect to see a lot of five-man fronts, all this different stuff that we see from the Steelers in their base looks. Brandon Echols, their slot corner, probably won't play as big of a factor in this ball game just because he's going to be off the field for so much in this game because of how much jumbo Miami is going to be in. But then another thing that this defense can't afford to do is get fooled by the excellent play calling and play design of head coach Mike McDaniel, who is so good at kind of scheme effing you, so to speak, where he's putting a bunch of different miscellaneous pieces out there in crazy formations and then kind of formations you to death. He's one of the best in the league at doing that. And, if you're not careful, he's going to run circles around you as a defensive coaching staff. So Terrell Austin, Mike Tomlin need to bring their A game on Monday night because, even though I do think that Miami has a little bit of a limited quarterback situation in Tua Tagovailoa, their head coach is one of the best in the league in setting up opportunities for his players and putting his guys in positions to succeed. So the Steelers defensive coaching staff needs to do the same. But as I mentioned with Tua Tagovailoa, he is the weakness of this Miami Dolphins offense, and you got to make him beat you from the pocket. And we talk about how this Dolphins team has a reputation for not playing well in cold weather. Well, Tua has kind of been, the main engine of that, where he's never played well in cold weather. Obviously, he's from Hawaii, and he's just not very comfortable playing in the cold at all. And he's played his worst football of his career in these kinds of conditions. And, even in, comfortable conditions this year, he hasn't played particularly great. He doesn't have great arm strength. He's one of the better anticipatory throwers in the game. His pre-snap processing is about as good as any guy in the league. He is relatively accurate, and he's awesome running those RPOs. He's going to want to get the ball out extremely fast in this game. He's second in the league in average time to throw, but he doesn't have a lot of size or arm strength, so if the wind is going on Monday, that's going to be an issue for Tua. He doesn't have really any off-schedule playmaking ability, so if you take away that first read for Tua, you're going to be able to get him on the ground, and he's just a complete statue in the pocket. So hopefully that's going to allow the Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush to get after this guy and get a lot of sacks, force a lot of turnovers. And as you guys can see here with Tua Tagovailoa's numbers this year, he's really fast getting the ball out, but he's also dead last in turnover-worthy play percentage there. He's got the highest turnover-worthy play percentage in the league at 5.4%, and he's going up against a Steelers team here and a defense that turns over the ball, more than just about anybody else in football. So he doesn't throw the ball down the field. He's not the most efficient guy in the world whatsoever. He's not the most accurate quarterback in the league either. This is a quarterback that has really struggled this year, and there's conversations in Miami about replacing him next year. He's played so poorly. So hopefully the Steelers defense can take advantage of that, and the key to victory on defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to make Tua Tagovailoa the main focus for the Miami Dolphins offense in this one. Then, the way that you do that is Terrell Austin comes out with a very post-snap rotation-heavy game plan. All right, and we've seen this from Terrell Austin this year where he's willing to get into this post-snap rotation type of world, and that's exactly the type of defense you got to play against Tua because he's so good pre-snap where if you just go out there in static coverages and, he knows exactly what you're going to run before he snaps the ball, he's going to be able to throw that ball with anticipation, get it to his receivers. But if the Steelers can mix things up and they can shift post-snap, Tua has shown throughout his career and a lot this year that, those predetermined reads where he thinks he knows where there's going to be a guy open, he throws it anyway despite a post-snap rotation. It ends up being an interception. So that's going to be where the turnover opportunities for the Steelers pop up is those post-snap rotated looks, and I think we're going to see quite a few of those from the Steelers in this game, particularly non-traditional Tampa looks from single high formations. Then when it comes to on the offensive side of the ball, you got to make them feel it, all right? And, you got to make them feel it in the run game, okay? We want the run game to get going this week. The last 2 weeks with Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell, the run game has not been as successful, and we want to see that, that dynamic return for the Pittsburgh Steelers because when this team is playing their best ball, it's when their defense is playing well and when their run game is able to take some time off the clock. And, we've seen Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell Darnell be a really good dynamic wide running back duo for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. So getting back to getting these guys to over 100 rush yards in a game would be fantastic, especially in a colder environment there in Pittsburgh. If the Steelers can run for more rush yards than Miami in this game, they will be the victors for this football game. But then, also because it's so cold outside, you might want a little bit more of a bruising running back out there, which informs me that Caleb Johnson could see a heavier workload this week. Obviously, he's the biggest out of the top three backs on this Steelers roster, and he was kind of known for playing in these cold weather games at Iowa in college. He played in these kinds of conditions in college. So I think that they drafted Caleb Johnson for games like this, and it would not surprise me at all if we see Caleb's biggest workload of the season come in this football game here, where he could really make a big impact. So keep your eye on Caleb Johnson. But some other big bodies that the Dolphins players probably do not want to tackle are DK Metcalf, who obviously is a big body that can really get going. We saw it last week against the Baltimore Ravens in this kind of game where, these hits, everybody's going to feel every single hit that they take. DK out there running full speed. You better believe these Dolphins defenders do not want to see DK Metcalf with a head of steam. Same thing goes for Darnell Washington. I mean, no DB or linebacker wants to tackle Darnell Washington any week, but especially in a game where it's going to be below 20 degrees. I mean, any hit you take from Darnell Washington is definitely going to hurt. So hopefully Darnell is able to clear concussion protocol by the end of the week and play in this one, and hopefully DK gets his stomach issues figured out before Monday night, and hopefully those two can play big impacts, because I think they will be heavily featured in this offensive game plan this week. Then I think another big thing here is going to be to protect the football if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers on offense this week. Aaron Rodgers did a good job of this last week. And obviously, it came close. You had that tip pass that Rodgers was able to, quote-unquote, catch and avoid the interception. That would have been a huge play there in the fourth quarter against the Ravens. But at the end of the day, you won the turnover battle against Baltimore, and you ended up winning the ball game. So hopefully you can protect that football, get that run game going, make the Miami Dolphins defense feel the presence of the physicality of the Steelers offense. And that's certainly the key to victory on offense for me. And then if it's close, you got to make the play late, just like every single week, guys. We talked about it last week. It's usually a key to victory for me in games that I expect to be somewhat close, all right? And I think this week is one of those weeks just because of the run game that Miami has, because I'm not sure if Derek Carman's going to play, because, it is cold outside, so I do expect this to be a very run-centric football game. But, there's going to be a play that needs to be made in the fourth quarter. Can the Steelers make it? And, in last game, it was getting a couple defensive stops against the Baltimore Ravens. They were able to make those plays to win. Got to do the same thing in this one if you want to get to 8-6. So you take a look here at the points per game trends between these two teams, and it would predict a very slight victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is about as close as you can possibly get in terms of cross-referencing the points per games of the offenses and defenses on both sidelines. So, the trends would predict, a very close ball game here. Could go either way. But for me, guys, I am going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers to win, just with Mike Tomlin's career record on Monday Night Football, having this extra time to prepare for this opponent. The fact that you do have some good running backs here in Pittsburgh, and I think the run game returns to form this week. I hope Derek Carman's going to be able to play in this one, but I'm just hopeful here, guys, because I think that this Steelers team has got some momentum here after that big-time win against the Baltimore Ravens, and I just really hope the Steelers can get at least one primetime win on their schedule here before the season ends. So it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comments section. Predict the score of Steelers versus Dolphins here for Monday Night Football. I'm taking the Steelers to win 27-21. Let me know your take down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports and this week's Steelers Talk preview. We do previews like this every single week for every single Steelers game. So if you like this in-depth, insightful type of preview coverage for every single Steelers game, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.